It's a Whistleblower Wednesday on KSFO, and we're very pleased to have on the broadcast Stanley Kurtz, author of Spreading the Wealth, How Obama is Robbing the Suburbs to Pay for the Cities. Good morning, Stanley.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for having me.
You know, Stanley, isn't it interesting? I mean, your book, the timing is so perfect because here we have this video which has been discovered of Barack Obama in 1998 talking about redistribution. Here's the audio portion for our listeners. Take a listen.
I think the trick is figuring out how do we structure government systems that pool resources and hence facilitate some redistribution, because I actually believe in redistribution, at least at a certain level, to make sure that everybody's got a shot.
Stanley, this confirms everything you write about in your book, Spreading the Wealth.
That's it, Brian. And you know what was really interesting to me about that was not just where he says, I believe in redistribution, it's that little bit before it where he says, I want to figure out how to structure governments to pool resources, how to restructure government systems to pool resources and redistribute. That is what I really talk about in the book, which is this theme of regionalism, the idea of forcing suburban and urban governments together, and if you get all that money together, you can redistribute the tax money of the suburbs to the cities. So that's what Obama was talking about there, and to my amazement, after writing a whole book about this topic, talk about being timely, I discovered that there's a proposition on the ballot in California right now, Prop 31, which is really the creation of this regionalist movement, this far-left redistributive regionalist movement, and it very well could pass. Nobody even understands this part of the proposition, but I think it would be tremendously dangerous for California if it were to pass, and I'd be delighted to tell you more about it.
Please do.
Well, this Prop 31, which is it's massive. It has 1 million provisions in it, and the focus has been on easy-to-like things like publicizing bills 3 days before they pass, which is perfectly nice. But what this massive proposition does is to totally restructure local government in California, really sweeping away the system of local government Americans have had since the founding, and creating a whole new layer of government, a kind of super regional governments that stand above and control your local governments. And the purpose of that is really just what Obama said in that clip from 1998, to redistribute tax money from the suburbs to the cities, to restructure governments so they pool resources so you can redistribute money. And this has not been talked about in the few editorials that discuss this Prop 31. They don't even go into this, and yet it's a massive part. It's the most important and revolutionary part of the bill. It's really all about redistributing the wealth of the suburbs to the cities, and nobody knows it.
It's amazing to me. You're right. Proposition 31, the language of this proposition is so murky and mysterious that my guess has always been it will pass, because it does say a few good things, like you mentioned, publicly displaying all pieces of legislation for several days so everyone has a chance to read it. But beyond that, it's going to effectively destroy the function of local government. And maybe that indeed is exactly what Barack Obama was talking about in 1998.
Mm-hmm. You understand, there's a historical reminder here for all of us about, if we just take a look at how poorly Roosevelt's second term turned out, because he was doing the same thing, redistributing wealth among the Americans, and it caused, it led to a lot of violence with sit-down strikes in the auto, steel, and other factories, because people understood that if you tax the wealthy and redistribute the wealth like that, that there's going to be class envy.
But you know, the interesting thing about this regionalism plan is it isn't just going after the so-called 1%. I mean, it's really going after the suburban middle class, the very people who President Obama is appealing to in the election. And one of the things I find most amazing about Prop 31 is the stealthy nature of this whole thing. As I say, the discussions are missing the most important and revolutionary part of the bill, and it turns out that the sponsors of the bill, when they talk about it, they say nothing about the redistributive portions of the bill, the parts that cut honest about it, and people roll their eyes and say, well, that's just a conspiracy theory or whatever. And here we are in California with a massive, really revolutionary change proposed for your system of government, and nobody knows about that part of the bill. Even the nonpartisan summaries of the bill leave out the part about tax sharing. And another terrible, there's so many bad things, I could just go on. Another terrible part about all this is when these regional governments get together, they won't even be elected by all the people they're controlling. Every municipality that goes in on this common government will appoint someone to be on a controlling board, but they won't be elected by the public. So people will be redistributing your tax money who haven't been elected. It's redistribution without representation.
Stanley, you wrote a great piece at National Review Online. We will get this up on the KSFO.com Morning Show blog because we want everyone to have a chance to read what Proposition 31 is all about. We really appreciate your time and, of course, your book, Spreading the Wealth, How Obama's Robbing the Suburbs to Pay for the Cities. He calls us right now, Whistleblower Wednesday from Castro Valley, to blow the whistle on the Bay Area transportation agencies. Mimi, good morning.
Good morning, Brian, and I want to tie this in with your great interview with Stanley Kurtz at the top of the hour. He was talking about the fact that Proposition 1 is a stealth way of regionalizing governments and moving the tax money around. And the way transportation is funded in the Bay Area is doing exactly the same thing. They just came out with a study at UC Berkeley showing how the transportation in the Bay Area, that's all of the light rail and the buses, it's all being very heavily subsidized because there just isn't the ridership to make it happen. And so essentially what's happening is taxpayers are funding an inefficient transportation system that's a regional transportation system, and it's really a form of spreading the wealth. We're paying a lot of money for systems that aren't being used, and no new roads are being built.
It's a great point. People aren't using. We're all paying for mass transit.
Yep.
In terms of a percentage, very few people are using it. And then you look at these monstrous salaries and the pensions that the people working for these various operations are receiving. It's totally out of kilter. So you're exactly right.
Well, and the other thing I want to tie in, you've been very good at helping us cover the One Bay Area plan. This is a regional plan, once again, that's where the regional entities are dictating to the cities how much housing they need to build, what type of transportation they have. None of these people are elected people. They're all appointed to these positions. And it's really devastating. In a lot of cases, if these kinds of things go through, like Proposition 31, your city council is going to become basically irrelevant. It's going to be more of a ceremonial function, and all of this stuff is being dictated down at the regional level. So I agree with Stanley Kurtz. Proposition 31 is going to be even more devastating to California. We're fighting the One Bay Area right now, and it's hard enough as it is, but this is going to make it almost impossible to fight this 25-year plan that includes housing, transportation, and land use.
And, you try to explain this to people, and they think you're making stuff up. But the fact of the matter is, the people running the show here in California are a bunch of elitist masterminds who think they know better than the rest of us. And Mimi, Melanie and I are constantly talking, for example, about high-speed rail. What an absolute ridiculous plan this is at this point in time. We don't have the money for it. It's going to kill businesses. This first leg of the high-speed rail running in the Central Valley is going to put out of business something like 100 businesses, many of them farms. This is nuts. This is not what California needs, especially when we do not have anything close to the money to fund it.
Yes, and another thing I want to comment on is that they interviewed a spokesperson from the VTA, the Valley Transportation Association. It's the second worst transportation entity in the country. They're the ones that run the light rail and the buses in Santa Clara County. And they were interviewing this woman who's the spokesperson, and she said, well, the real problem, the reason our buses and light rail aren't cost effective is because of sprawl. So we don't want sprawl. We want to incent. This is a
you mean urban sprawl? So it's
urban sprawl. We want to incent businesses. We don't like the campuses. We don't like the fact that business campuses. We don't like the fact that they have all this parking. We are going to incent businesses to build close into the urban areas so that we can fund our transportation systems. You know, this is the opposite of build it and they will come. This is build it and we're going to force people into the lifestyle that we dictate they should have.
Well, this has been going on for 25 years, and we're seeing the final phases of the left's plan to accomplish their goals, and they're doing it very well. People are
it's getting worse. It's getting worse. We're at a tipping point now unless people start standing up against this stuff.
Well, the first thing we have to do is make sure we do not vote for Proposition 31. That's going to be an absolute disaster, but it's worded in such a way that they try to make, as they do with all these propositions, try to make them sound so appealing and so good, but it will be a disaster. Mimi, thanks for being a whistleblower and joining us here on KSFO this morning.
Again, I think that we need to have everybody read about Proposition 31, listen to what we're talking about when we explain this, because we've done the research, but if you want to do it for yourself, please feel free to do so. And then start emailing everybody you know, because if we don't start actively working to defeat Proposition 31, we are going to see a realization of everything that we stand against. All of the control, the governmental control and intrusion that we deeply resent and have fought so hard against for all these years will be here, and it will be here very quickly.
I'm sending this link over to Katie Green. This is the link that Stanley Kurtz wrote at National Review Online, just describing Proposition 31. And again, the way they're going to play it in Sacramento, you know, they make these crab sandwiches. And it's a deal where it's a nice-looking sandwich. You know, look at it, it looks pretty good. But there's a couple ounces of dog crap in it. And you know, you bite into the side where there's no dog crap, you think, damn, this is a good sandwich. And you go a little further, and they try to disguise the dog crap. That's what this is. This is a crap sandwich. And they'll say, well, you know, one of the nice provisions of this bill is every time there's legislation in Sacramento, we're going to make sure that it's before the public for 3 days before it's voted on, as opposed to 3 minutes, as the case is now.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds really good. I want that. That's a good law, Mel. I want that. Well, okay, that's great, but the rest of this is crap, and it's going to essentially, your local city council, your local planning commission, etc., will mean nothing any longer. Gone.
Yeah. I mean, you know, imagine having a city council that is powerless and toothless. I mean, they have no ability to make, create, or pass any legislation or stop any legislation that is before them. So all of your local input will be taken away from you directly in the face of our Constitution.